Clay called me into his office a week after I buried my father. I already knew what was coming. You don't get a calendar invite from the VP with no subject line unless someone's about to get screwed. I walked in, closed the door behind me, and took the seat across from him without waiting to be offered. Clay looked like he was trying real hard to play it cool, leaning back in his leather chair like he'd just signed a $1 million deal, not about to drop a knife in my back. He didn't waste time. Your role's been phased out. Just like that. No performance review, no plan to transition me to something else. Not even a sugar-coated lie. Just phased out. I didn't blink. Got it. He raised his eyebrows like he expected a meltdown. I didn't give him the satisfaction. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? Clay leaned forward, slid a folder across the desk. His ring scratched the wood. We'll need a full client transfer. Everything Glenn had, especially West Coast, that told me everything I needed to know. These guys had no idea what Glenn had done before he passed. No clue. I picked up the folder, flipped through it like I cared. This is what legal wants? Standard transition, he said, smooth and clean. I gave him a tight nod, stood up, and dropped the folder right back on his desk. And that West Coast client list Clay was drooling over. Glenn had signed every one of those accounts over to me, legally and quietly, 2 weeks before he died. They thought they were playing chess. They didn't know the board had already flipped. I turned at the door. Oh, just so we're clear, I said, I'll get legal what they need. But if I were you, I wouldn't count on owning those clients. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? I opened the door without answering. Let him sit with it. 6 months earlier, Glenn called me into his office after hours. Place was dead quiet, floor lights dimmed. He had a black coffee in one hand, and that dead serious look he only got when something really mattered. He didn't ask me to sit, just stared out the window for a second and said, I've been watching you run circles around these guys for years. I shrugged. Not hard. They'll never move you up, he said. Wrong fit for the club. I leaned against the doorframe. What club? He turned. Exactly. Then he hit me with it. Stage 4 lung cancer, 6 months, maybe. No emotion, no tears, just facts. That's how Glenn operated. Like, life was one long balance sheet. He took a breath. My client book. I want you to have it. Glenn, I'm not asking. His voice cut through me. But it can't be public. Not yet. Not ever, if we do this right. We both knew how this place worked. If the board caught wind of that plan, they'd bury it. Replace Glenn with one of their boys and gut the accounts on the way out. So, we started building under the radar. Every week after hours or on weekends, Glenn and I met with clients, mid-size firms mostly, construction suppliers, tech vendors, trucking outfits, all West Coast. Solid operations. Not flashy, but steady. He introduced me as his operations guy, said I was helping streamline handoffs, prepping for long-term succession support. It looked like shadowing. Nothing tripped alarms. Sometimes we'd fly out to meet them, just the two of us. Cheap rental car, Glenn hacking up half a lung but still driving the whole way. He wouldn't let me touch the wheel. They need to see I'm still behind the wheel, he'd joke, even if I ain't got much gas left. Each meeting, he shifted more weight to me. Questions, follow-ups, decisions. Clients caught on, but none of them balked. Glenn had their trust. If he said I was the guy, they listened. One night over drinks in Sacramento, I asked him straight, why me? He stared into his glass and said, because you don't kiss ass and you don't flinch. Fair enough. 3 months in, we started looping in his lawyer, a sharp, no-bullshit woman named Sherry. Glenn wanted the transfers airtight, legal, enforceable, fully documented. No NDAs, no non-competes, I asked during one late meeting. No paper trail for them to choke us with later, Glenn said. If they try to bury you, I want you clean. That's when I realized he wasn't just leaving me a career, he was setting up a counterstrike. 2 weeks before he passed, we met Sherry again. Glenn looked rough, thin, coughing, skin like wax. But he sat tall when the time came. He signed the portfolio transfer, client by client, notarized, recorded, witnessed. Sherry looked at me as she packed up the documents. "This is legal. It's yours." I glanced over at Glenn. He didn't say anything, just gave me that slight nod he used when the job was done right. Afterward, we sat in his car for a minute. Didn't talk, didn't need to. He knew what was coming, so did I. 3 days later, I started reaching out to each client privately, reconfirming, rebuilding. The firm thought I was just doing cleanup work. They had no idea what was already in motion. The funeral was a parade of liars in black suits. They filed past Glenn's casket like they gave a damn, mouthing the same tired condolences. "He'll be missed. One of the greats. Such a loss." Most of them hadn't spoken 2 real words to him in the past year. Clay showed up in a navy coat, flashy watch peeking from his cuff, like always. He waited until the end, when only a few of us were still there. Slapped a hand on my shoulder like we were old war buddies. "We'll need to talk about transitioning Glenn's book," he said. I nodded, just enough. Didn't say a word, just stood there and let him think he was in control. That night, the CEO texted me personally. "No, sorry for your loss. Just need full list of Glenn's clients. First thing tomorrow." I stared at it for a full minute before setting my phone down and opening my laptop. I made 2 versions, one clean, one clipped. The first had everything, the whole list minus West Coast clients. The second was my resignation letter, dated and signed, effective immediately. I barely slept. Around 4 a.m., I got up, printed everything, packed it into a red folder, and headed to the office before sunrise. Clay was already there when I walked in. Early bird, eager to eat. "You got it?" he asked, already reaching for the folder like it was a done deal. I handed it over and stepped back. He opened it and started scanning. Page after page, his face tightened, his lips pressed thin. His eyes darted toward me. "Where are Glenn's West Coast accounts?" he asked. I shrugged. I wasn't privy to those. He handled them personally. It was a lie, but he didn't need to know that. Clay set the folder down slow, like he was trying not to break something. "That's not gonna work," he said. I kept my tone level. "It's the list I have. That's what you asked for." Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the second folder, dropped it right next to the first. Clay opened it, read the letter, looked up. "You're resigning?" "Effective immediately." He blinked. "You're walking away?" Just like that. "I gave everything I had to this place," I said. "What I'm not going to do is hand over something that was never yours to begin with." He stood up, voice rising. "You don't own those accounts. They were Glenn's. He worked for us. Legally, you're wrong," I said, "but you're welcome to check." Then I turned and walked out. They scrambled fast. Calls, emails. One guy from legal even cornered me in the parking lot, asking questions like, "Did Glenn mention a transition plan?" I gave them nothing. Meanwhile, every night that week, I made calls of my own, client by client, quiet check-ins, personal. "Just wanted to let you know I'm no longer with the firm," I told them. "But I'm still here, and I've got the full picture Glenn left behind." Not one of them blinked. The firm tried digging for info, asked around, reached out to Glenn's old assistant. She didn't give them a damn thing. By the end of the week, I'd signed 5 new consulting agreements. Same clients, just under my name now. No ties to the old place. They still thought I was bluffing. I let them think that. Because every time they opened their mouth to claim something, I already had 2 steps in motion to shut it down. They weren't dealing with an ex-employee anymore. They were dealing with the guy Glenn had been building in plain sight, and they were just too arrogant to see it. The first legal email landed 2 days later. One line stood out in bold at the top. "You are in unauthorized possession of company assets." They didn't even try to dress it up with legal fluff. Just straight threats, like they thought I'd panic and fold. I didn't even respond. Forwarded it to Sherry, Glenn's lawyer, the one who knew how to tear a throat out with a smile. She called me 10 minutes later. "They're sloppy," she said. "Desperate. Keep forwarding." And I did. Every email, every voicemail, every friendly reminder from legal, sent straight to her inbox. Then came the soft offers. A guy from HR I'd barely spoken to left a voicemail about a transition bonus. if I helped smooth things over. Clay emailed next, offering a consulting retainer, just until the dust settles. I didn't answer either. Next morning, a formal package arrived. Courier, thick envelope. Inside, a 6-month retention contract with a fat number up top. Big enough that someone else might have stopped to think. I slid it across Sherry's desk. She scanned it. "You want me to shred this?" I nodded. "With pleasure." That's when they got dirty. I got a call from a client in Reno, a logistics firm I'd locked in with Glenn a month before he passed. The CEO sounded pissed. "Why's your old company offering to undercut you by 30%? He asked. "What?" "They said you're unstable. That you left in the middle of a handoff." I clenched my jaw. "Send me whatever they gave you." They'd gone full smear, calling clients directly, offering discounts, limited time deals, even hinted I'd violated confidentiality clauses, which didn't exist. Sherry and I went to work. We drafted formal responses backed with signed transfer documents and a breakdown of Glenn's legal instructions. Every single client had consented in writing. No NDAS, no non-competes, no stolen assets, just facts. Sherry mailed out cease and desist letters to corporate within 48 hours, but they didn't stop. 2 days later, one of my startup clients in San Diego, investor-backed, still new to the game, called in a panic. "They said we're liable for engaging with you," the founder said, "that you breached your contract." "They're bluffing," I told him. "They offered to buy us out of our agreement with you. Said it was cleaner I didn't even get mad. I just told him to hold tight." After we hung up, I pulled out Glenn's old contact list, the private one, not the sanitized version, the one with hand-scribbled notes in the margins. I found what I needed, a name underlined twice. Tom Granger, investor, Pacific Holdings. Owe me one. I hadn't spoken to Tom before, but I didn't hesitate, dialed him up. "Tom, this is the guy Glenn mentored," he finished. "I've been expecting your call." I told him what was happening. He didn't ask for documents, he didn't ask for numbers. He just said, "Give me a day." Next afternoon, that San Diego startup founder called me back. Voice completely different. "What the hell did you do?" he asked. "Their investors pulled out. They're backing us now. Doubled our run rate," I smiled. "Told you they were bluffing." One by one, the scare tactics fell apart. They tried hitting me with another threat letter, this one from a white shoe firm downtown. Sherry shredded it before I even finished reading the subject line. "They keep swinging," she said, "but they're swinging blind." And she was right. They were panicking because they knew I wasn't just holding Glenn's legacy. I was building something new, and they couldn't control it. What they didn't understand yet was this. I wasn't running. I was hunting. They wanted me boxed in. But Glenn didn't just leave behind clients. He left firepower. One night, after the first legal threat hit, I went through the last drawer of the metal file cabinet in my home office. Stuff Glenn gave me in a manila envelope right before he passed, labeled in his writing, for when they get dirty. Inside, call logs, back-channel notes, handwritten letters, even birthday cards from board members to vendors that didn't exist. And then there was the list, names of people he'd helped over the years, each one with a note beside it. Covered payroll shortfall, March 2016. Introduced to Series A investor, summer 2018. Negotiated exit quietly, 2020. Some of them were names I recognized, others I didn't. But they all had one thing in common. They owed him. And now they owed me. This wasn't the smoking gun, just favors and leverage Glenn kept for when the knives came out. I started calling, quietly. One name a day. "Hey, this is Nate." Glenn was my mentor. Every one of them remembered him. Some asked what took me so long. I laid it out direct, what I was building, how they could help. No pressure, just clarity. A vendor in Seattle waived 6 months hosting fees for a client I was onboarding. A marketing firm in Phoenix ran a full rebrand for dirt cheap. A contact in LA dropped my name in a board meeting that landed us a pitch call. They weren't just doing favors, they were lighting a fuse. Meanwhile, my old firm went from threats to straight-up desperation. One morning, I walked out of my building and saw a kid in a button-down standing by the front steps with a tablet. Said he was doing outreach for a partner firm. I raised an eyebrow. Which firm? He fumbled. Corporate finance support. Let me guess. Clay send you? He didn't answer, just turned red and walked off. They were literally sending kids to intercept clients outside my office. Pathetic. Inside, we kept building. We weren't flashy, but we were honest. That mattered. Clients came in and stayed in. I made sure they knew exactly who I was and what we were doing. This isn't about revenge, I told them. It's about doing it right. They respected that. Word spread. A trucking firm introduced me to their cousin's biotech startup. That startup knew a supplier with a funding problem. I looped in one of Glenn's old contacts. Boom, new deal. Everyone won. One deal turned into 5, then 10. Then came the message. An email from a senior HR exec I hadn't heard from in months. Subject: opportunity to discuss return body. We'd like to explore a full partnership and executive leadership role. Significant equity, full team autonomy, come home. Come home. Like I was some lost son, not the guy they tried to smear 6 different ways. I didn't respond, let it sit for 3 days. Then I forwarded it to Sherry. She replied, "Now they're scared." The next morning, Clay called. I let it ring. Then he called again. I picked up. "Nate," he said, all warm and calm like nothing ever happened. "Let's not let pride get in the way of opportunity." "Pride didn't get in the way," I said. "You did." He laughed like we were just old teammates. "Look, we messed up. We see that now. Let's talk about fixing it." "You had your shot," I said. "You used it to threaten my clients." There was a pause. "We're drowning," he finally said. "But this doesn't have to be a war." "It's not," I said. "You already lost." He went quiet. Then I hung up. They tried playing defense. I built offense. They tried playing politics. I built trust. They tried baiting me with power. I already had mine. The day after Clay's call, I grabbed the file Glenn told me never to open until it was the right time. His handwriting was still on the outside. "Do not touch until it matters." You'll know. I knew. I took it straight to Sherry's office. She already had someone waiting. Guy in a gray blazer, state badge clipped to his belt. Looked mid-30s, clean cut, quiet. Not the type to talk unless he already knew the answer. Sherry nodded at me. "This is Finch. State Financial Crimes Unit." Finch gave me a firm handshake but didn't smile. "You brought what we talked about?" I dropped the file on the table. "I haven't opened it," I said. "Glenn told me to bring it straight to her. No copies, no scans." Sherry flipped it open and whistled under her breath. "Jesus." I sat down across from them, arms crossed. Let them take it in. Inside that file was the real reason Glenn never moved up. Invoices from shell vendors tied to execs' cousins. Revenue projections that didn't match actual bank transfers. Internal emails with edits tracked, changing quarterly reports to justify inflated bonuses. Actual line items labeled "reclassify for optics." Finch leaned forward. "These all original?" "Yep." He flipped a few more pages, then pulled out one email chain that had Glenn's name buried in CC. It was from the CFO to a VP and a board member. "Numbers aren't close. We'll need to shift some deferreds into this quarter. Glenn won't like it. He'll get over it." Finch didn't say a word, just took a photo of it on his phone and kept flipping. Sherry tapped a page in the middle. "Here. This ties inflated vendor contracts back to executive kickbacks. That's jail time if it sticks." I nodded. He tried reporting it once, went through board channels. 2 weeks later, 3 of his people got cut. Finch looked up. "Retaliation? Call it what you want." That's when Glenn started documenting everything himself. There were notes in Glenn's handwriting in the margins. Fabricated queue, to push, Mike signs off on all fake vendor setups, avoids audit by bouncing through new hire accounts. It was the kind of stuff that would crack a company open from the inside. This was different, hard evidence, not favors. The kind of file that ended careers. Finch closed the folder slowly, like he'd just been handed a loaded weapon. Any reason you waited until now? I looked him in the eye. Because up until now, it was just business. Now it's survival. He gave a small nod. No judgment. Just respect. Sherry slid the file into an evidence sleeve and handed it to him. You'll get the originals. We've kept nothing. Glenn didn't want this weaponized, just finished. Finch stood. I'll need to open a formal review. This'll get noisy. Let it, I said. He left without another word. Sherry followed him out, made sure everything was logged clean. When she came back, I was still sitting there, staring at the table. She dropped into her chair. That was the right call. Wasn't mine, I said. Glenn made it. I just delivered the package. Sherry leaned forward. You know what this means, right? Yeah. She paused. This is going to bury them. I stood up, grabbed my jacket. Good. They've been walking on bodies long enough. And then I left. Time to let the paper do the talking. By the time I got back to the office, the world was already shaking. 2 days. That's how long it took for the first headline to hit. Securities fraud probe targets prominent investment firm. Next came the subheads: whistleblower materials, fabricated revenue, inflated bonuses. Then, executive suspensions pending investigation. They didn't name names, not yet. But I didn't need them to. The panic was obvious. My inbox exploded with emails, my phone lit up nonstop. Ex-colleagues, reporters, even a couple board members suddenly acting like we were old friends. I didn't answer a single one. I kept my head down and worked. The clients stayed, every single one. Some even doubled down, offering to introduce new business. Said they respected how I handled it. Sherry called midweek. They froze Glenn's retirement payout. I gripped the edge of my desk. They what? They're claiming potential exposure. That his estate might be part of the investigation. He's dead. They don't care. They think they can hold his legacy hostage. You fix it. I already filed. They'll fold. She was right. By Friday, they backed off and paid it out. Quietly. No apology. Just fear. I got a call that night from Glenn's sister. She'd heard about the payout. Her voice cracked halfway through thanking me. He always said he trusted you, she said. I didn't know what he meant until now. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just told her the truth. I just finished what he started. The next day, I got a LinkedIn message from Quinn. Quinn was a mid-level manager when I first got hired, part of the boys' club back then. Smooth talker, sharp suits, always played both sides of the fence. He was the one who quietly warned me a year earlier that I was being left out of promotions. Said it wasn't personal, just how the system worked. Now he wanted a job. Said he respected what I built, that he was done playing politics, wanted in on something honest. I didn't delete the message, I called him. Why now? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Because I saw who they protect and who they burn. You know this won't be easy, I said. No title games, no hand-holding, junior role, less money, more work, fair. I don't need loyalty, I told him. I need someone who gives a damn. I'm in. I hung up and made a note to send him onboarding docs Monday. I didn't trust him, not fully, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, people like him could change when they finally had something real to work for. The news kept rolling. Rumors turned into statements. Internal memos leaked. I didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. I just kept going. Because while they were busy trying to save their necks, I was building something they could never touch. A week later, the headlines stopped being vague. 3 executives arrested in financial misconduct probe. Company stock plummets amid fraud revelations. Anonymous sources confirm board-level involvement. They weren't naming anonymous sources anymore. They were naming names. And they weren't just catching the fish Glenn had marked. They were finding more. Ghost vendors billing for services that never existed. Expense accounts bleeding cash. Backdated contracts with forged signatures. Turns out Glenn hadn't seen the half of it. The deeper they dug, the dirtier it got. Board members implicated. Bonuses clawed back. Two execs jumped ship before the arrests hit. Sudden retirements, press releases full of hollow thanks. Didn't matter. The firm's stock took a nosedive. Clients bailed, vendors pulled out. By the end of the month, they were basically smoke in a suit. Then something strange happened. A guy named Leo reached out. I hadn't heard that name in years. He was one of Glenn's former analysts. Left the company quietly back in 18. No drama, just vanished. "You were right," he said on the call. About Glenn. About everything. I wasn't the only one he trained, was I? Not even close. Within days, I got pinged by 3 more. All of them had pieces, documents, contacts, memory sticks, stuff they'd kept. Stuff Glenn had handed them in confidence, like he did with me. We started sharing, cross-referencing what we had, not just to expose the rot, but to build something better, cleaner, smarter, real. I leased a bigger office near the harbor, nothing fancy, just open space, fresh paint, long tables, the kind of place where people did real work, not politics. My team grew fast. I hired Quinn, then 2 more referrals from Glenn's network. Everyone earned their place. No titles, no dead weight. Clients started bringing in friends. "Talk to Nate," they'd say. "He does things right." We never promised the moon. We just showed up, told the truth, and delivered. And that was enough. First month in the new space, I unpacked the last frame photo from my box. Glenn standing on a cliff in Big Sur, wine tearing through his hair, coffee cup in one hand. Underneath, I had a plaque made, just a small strip of brass. "Integrity is a legacy." I hung it in the front lobby, right by the door. People noticed it. Some asked about it, some didn't. Every morning when I walked in, I gave it a nod. Nothing dramatic, just a small, quiet reminder of who we were and what we were building. Not just a business, a new damn standard. A few weeks after we opened the harbor office, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten address, no return name, just Glenn's sister's zip code. Inside was a folded note and a separate envelope, sealed in wax like something out of another era. The note was short. "Nate, he told me to send this if everything played out like he thought. Sounds like it has. Sarah." I cracked the seal and unfolded the letter. It was Glenn's handwriting. Strong, clean, no hesitation in the strokes. "If you're reading this, you did it." I read the line 3 times before moving on. "They'll say I was bitter, that you were disloyal, that this was all about pride or ego. Let them. I picked you because out of everyone in that damn office, you were the only one who ever asked me how I was actually doing. Not just about numbers, about me. That's why I gave you the book. That's why I gave you the plan. And now I'm giving you one more thing I read to the bottom. One more instruction. Check the lockbox. The small one, the keys taped behind the Big Sur photo frame." That night, after the office emptied out, I pulled the frame down. Sure enough, tiny silver key. I slid it into the second lockbox Glenn had once handed me, the one I'd never touched. Inside were more files, deeper cuts. Not just fraud, bribes, shell vendors, shell companies, payments routed offshore, internal memos with initials tied to discretionary distributions that didn't match any bonus structure. At the bottom was a single sticky note. "If it ever comes to it, give this to someone who won't flinch." I scanned the whole thing, dropped it on a flash drive, and delivered it to Finch, the investigator, the next morning. No ceremony, no calls, no warning. Just handed it to him, said, "There's more," and walked out. 3 weeks later, the final round of headlines hit. Investment firm collapse complete. Assets liquidated after state and federal seizures. Whistleblower files trigger criminal charges for remaining board members. Company sold off in pieces. They were finished. No statement, no rebound. Gone. I didn't cheer, didn't post about it, didn't mention Glenn's name once. Just walked into the office, dropped my bag by the desk, nodded at the plaque by the door. Then I got to work. Because Glenn never wanted revenge. He wanted the right people in charge. And now, we were.